to another edition of the Student Fire Podcast, live from the Speak Fire studio. My name is Bobby Berg. I'm a motivational speaker for schools, and I am here to help you live your best life today.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the Student Fire Podcast, live from the one and only Speak Fire studio. I'm your host, Bobby Berg, and we're going to kick things a little back this episode. This episode is not going to be your supercharged, take on the world episode. This is going to be a let's have a real talk kind of episode, because we haven't done this in a minute, and I haven't had a very good week, and as promised all of you, I'm going to be transparent with how I'm doing. I do this every day with my students that I'm coaching. Every accountability call that we have, we don't just say, oh, you're going to do great, everything's perfect, you can take on the world, you can win the day. You know, for those of you that have worked with me, you know you can win the day, and I know you can win the day, but sometimes the day is going to hit you back, and it's not going to be one of those hits that just hurts a little bit. It's going to be one of those ones that knocks you to the ground, and you take a couple seconds to get back up. That's how this week has been for me. Anyone else experience that ever? Anyone else ever have that where you don't feel as though you can really get your footing at all? You feel like no matter what you do, no matter how hard you're struggling, no matter how hard you're grinding to really make whatever you need to have happen, the world just kind of looks at you and goes, I got better plans, and they're not what you want. There's nothing wrong with taking a second to step back and go, okay, yeah, let's be real here, y'all. I'm straight up not having a good time here. You know what I mean? Well, so I was driving around yesterday, going to a store, and I started driving my car, and I had just recently changed the radiator out. My old one had cracked. I'm not a very mechanically inclined person, but I figured out how to do it, and it was really kind of cool. So I'm driving around, and all of a sudden my car, it's driving, all of a sudden it goes, "Rrr," and it's driving funny. And of course, you know, you're driving on the highway, you don't really think much of it. And I look at my temperature gauge, and it's just steadily climbing and climbing and climbing, and I'm going, oh, dude, I just fixed this. Come on, man. Like, I just took a week and a half to fix this car. Why is this being like this? So I pull over to the side of the road, let it cool down, and, you know, drive it 100 feet or however, you know, drive it a little bit just to get it off the freeway and panic. Because I'm like, well, I can't make it home. There's no way I'm going to make this home. Jenny's up, you know, Jenny's an hour away. I can call one of my friends, but it's going to take them at least a half hour to get to where I'm at, because I'm on the complete opposite end of town. And I said, even if someone does get to me, I either have to have the car towed home, or I have to baby it home like this. What do we do? So I sat back, and this is just weird telling you guys this, but I have this meditation on my phone. It's a YouTube video, but it's a meditation by Alan Watts, and it's a 5-minute clip where it helps ground you in the moment. It helps you realize, okay, whatever's happening, put it beside you and take 5 minutes to center yourself in how you're feeling right now. And what I love about it is it's not about making yourself be more mindful. It's not about making yourself be more positive. It's about allowing yourself to sit there in that moment and feel exactly how you're feeling without any reservations. So I turned my car off, rolled my windows up, and played this meditation for 5 minutes and just sat through it. And after I opened my eyes, I said, okay, what do we have to do here? You're in this terrible situation. Your car's not working. You have to do something. Fix it. And I pulled in a Napa Auto Parts, which happened to be right down the road, and it started raining. And I'm going, oh, this is perfect. So I, ran to the store, got the parts that I needed, and they didn't have the part that I needed. And I said, are you serious? I need a hose clamp. A hose clamp is one of the most simple pieces of equipment that almost any auto store should have. Well, of course they don't have it. And I said, okay, fine. I can make this one part work, or at least I thought I could. And I said, do you guys have a flathead screwdriver I can borrow? And they're looking through their box and they go, oh man, I guess someone walked off with it. And I sat back and I took a deep breath and I said, okay, that's fine. Thank you for your help. And the store clerk kind of looked at me funny and he goes, what? And I said, no, man, thanks. Like, you guys actually tried to help me out as much as you possibly could, but it's just not happening. And I grabbed my stuff and I ran out to the car, and it started raining hard. So there I am, soaking wet, trying to fix this car. Well, I go and I manage to take off the radiator hose, and water splashes, radiator fluid that's hot, splashes all over my arm. And I got so angry, and so many things had gone wrong that day that I just needed to let out my frustration, and I stood up, took my wrench, threw it at the ground, which was not the most mature thing to do, but I was frustrated and having a toddler-like temper tantrum, and I just shouted as loud as I could. And then got back to work. Why? Because no matter what happens, no matter how frustrated I was, I had to get this fixed. Because the car wasn't going to run without it. So I run back, and I finally put the fluid back in, and it's working. I got the hose on the radiator. Everything started working, and the car kept overheating. And I said, you know what? Fine, we're going to baby this thing home all the way home. So I did, and it took me 3 hours to get home. Now, most people I know are saying, Bobby, why didn't you just call a tow truck? Because, quite frankly, I didn't want to have to wait for a tow truck to then finally pick me up, get my car to base, because I live on a military base, and have them say, hey, we can't get him on here because of, COVID-19 safety precautions. Sorry. And then I would have to baby the car home anyway, so I said, whatever, we'll make this work. So, long story short, today, long story, it's been 6 minutes. So I get the car home, and I'm working on it today, and this was supposed to be a 10-minute repair, which took me an hour because for whatever reason it just wasn't going well. And finally, when I got the car working, I messed with something, and I said, okay, cool, this should work. Started the car up, and it ran like a dream. And ironically, one of my students called me. And this was one of my students. I've talked about him on the podcast before. He's a mechanic. Really, really great mechanic. And I was explaining to him what happened, and he goes, Bobby, I'm really proud of you. And I said, what? He goes, dude, jobs like that suck because they happen to all of us. Little car problems are frustrating for all of us, man. But you know what you know, and you know what you don't know. And you took what you know and you tried to figure it out. And all of that to say with this, y'all, you're going to go through a lot of times where your day's going to frustrate you. You're going to go through days, with school starting. It's going to be frustrating for a lot of you. You're going to have these moments where you're not sure what you're doing. You're going to have these moments where Zoom's going to kick you out. You're going to have these moments where you might have to go to school in person, and you might not be comfortable with that. Well, that's okay. It's going to happen. But what I want you to do is I want you to take all of the available information to you and work through it. See, I could have gotten frustrated. I could have said, forget this car. I'm going to leave this thing here. I'm done with it. I'm not dealing with it. I'm out. I'm just going to leave it here, put the title on the thing, and buy a new car. I'm done. But what I did is I took the information that I had in my head and I said, okay, let's diagnose exactly what this problem is. The car's not running. Yeah, I got that. But what is wrong with the vehicle? Oh, there's no coolant in the car. Okay, so what do? Fill it up. Well, I can't fill it up because the hose is broken. Okay, put the hose back on. Well, it's going to bust off. Okay, find a hose clamp. Well, what if it still doesn't work? That's okay if it doesn't work. But take every little bit of knowledge that you have right here and apply it before you throw in the towel. What I want you to do is I want you to take one thing that you really want to do this week, and I want you to just be honest with yourself and say, hey, listen, this problem is in front of me. I'm acknowledging that this problem is here. I don't like it, but I need to find a way to work through it. And you need to trust that you know what you know, and most importantly, you need to be willing to learn what you don't know. See, if there's no way you can know everything. It's impossible. But what I need you to be able to do is say, hey, for instance, one of my kids is really terrible at reading. Now, that's not to say he can't read, but he doesn't like reading dry literature that's assigned to him in school. They're reading Catcher in the Rye, and this kid despises that book. He's already read it twice this summer just to get a head start on it because he knew it was on the reading list. And that was one of his goals was he said, Bobby, for our summer coaching, I want to read through this book twice. I said, all right, cool, man. And he's just not good at retaining information. And I said, okay. So it's not that you can't read. What's the problem here? And he goes, I don't know how to retain information. I said, okay. So your problem here is that you don't retain information well when you're reading. How can we get around this? Now, I know exactly how to get around this because I'm an auditory learner. So my solution for this was to I would record myself reading this whole book and then listen to it back in my own inflection, in my own thoughts, and my own emotions with this that are attached to this book because then it meant more to me. Did I tell him that? Absolutely not. I let this kid struggle through it for 2 weeks. Now, some of my other coaches that I work with have very different approaches when it comes to coaching, and they're like, Bob, you wasted 2 weeks of this kid's time. And I said, well, I hear you, but what I did is I gave this kid 2 weeks worth of time to learn on his own. Because after that 2-week period, you want to know what happened? What do y'all think happened? If you're watching this, wherever you're listening to this on, type in the reviews, it's going to look funny, but just put the review in there and say, hey, for this episode, here's what I think this kid did. At the end of that 2 weeks, he got a hold of me and he said, Bobby, I think I got an idea, man. I've tried reading the book. I'm taking it one chapter at a time. I tried reading the chapter like 3 times and I just couldn't remember it. And I said, okay. He goes, I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to get an audiobook. I said, all right, cool, man. He goes, do you think that'll help? I said, it could. Is that the most helpful thing that you think would work? He goes, well, what else could I do? I said, I don't know. Let's think about this. Let's take 2 minutes here and think about this. And he goes, well, it'd be really awesome. I said, what? And he goes, dude, what if I recorded myself talking through it? And I said, what do you mean? Like talking through your problems with it or talking through your thoughts? He goes, no. Like actually recording the entire chapter. Cause then I could actually like listen to myself talking and I would get double the impact because I'd be reading it and I'd also be speaking it. And then I get to listen to myself doing all of it again. I said, oh, that's a great idea, dude. Give it a shot. Well, he emailed his English teacher and said, hey, I know we're reading this book. Could you give me like a sample quiz just so I could kind of figure out what your quiz style is like? And his teacher goes, yeah, of course. He sent him a practice like 10-question quiz and the kid aced it. Now, he didn't ace it just because he changed up his study pattern. He aced it because he was able to accept that he didn't know how to retain information. He completely surrendered to the idea of, I need to understand this and I don't get it right now. He completely gave himself up to the fact that he does not know something, and that is where his power came from. Now, the main part of this whole episode is not just you need to know, you need to know what you don't know, and you need to be willing to learn what you don't know. But do you know what it takes to really go through that? You want to know the one piece of advice that's really at the core of all of this? He was patient. He was so incredibly patient with what he was doing, because that took a lot to take 2 weeks to figure out that you're an auditory learner. That's a lot of time wasted, or so it would seem that you're wasting it. You know what I mean? It's frustrating. It takes a while. I hated doing that myself. I hated working on my car and figuring out, man, why don't I get this? But you have to go through every single step of the equation before you can get to the result. And you can't skip steps. And the second my student figured out, all right, man, I've tried this and I've really given this method a good try. Let's try something else. And let's understand that I don't know how this is going to work yet, but my coaches and Bobby and my teachers are really pushing me to my success. I trust them, and I'm going to trust the process. I'm going to trust the equation that they have laid out for me. I'm going to trust that when you don't give me all the answers, you're not doing it to be mean. You're doing it so that I learn how I learn. You're doing it so that when I have another problem like this come up, I don't have to call 18 people to be like, dude, I don't get it. You can just go, okay, I'm going to do everything in my power first before I exhaust anyone else's abilities. I'm going to do everything in my power first to make sure that I can be successful before I bring other people into the picture. I'm going to make sure that whatever I can do I do to the very best of my ability. Now, we're getting about, we're 15 minutes into this. I hope everyone has a really great week, but I got one last thing for you. I want you to pick a problem that you're having. I want you to have and I don't mean like a small inconvenience. I mean something that's been bothering you for a while now. I want you to take whatever that issue is, and I want you to really make a game plan for how you're going to fix it this week. For me personally, I'm going to look for a new car because I've needed to get a different vehicle for a minute. But not just, I need a new car. I'm going to get to the core of why I want a new vehicle. I love learning how to fix things. But there's something about this car that I feel like I'm putting too much effort into it. So what I'm really going to do is take the time to figure out exactly what it is I'm looking for. Am I looking for more reliability? Am I looking for better gas mileage? Am I looking for just something that's more of a status symbol? What is it? Because I don't know. I just know I don't like the car I have. So I'm really going to get to the bottom of it, and I'm going to have it for you next week, because as much as I'm having all of you do work, I'm doing work too, okay? So I hope everyone has a wonderful week. Thank you all so much for rocking with me. Everyone that's been on every episode, thank you. You're incredible. If you haven't checked out the last 2 episodes, I was interviewed by Daniel Bruce Levin. He's a complete stranger. He has 50 conversations with 50 strangers, and I was able to be a guest for him, and it was nothing short of fantastic. So I hope everyone has a wonderful week. Do your homework. Hang in there. Be patient and be willing to know what you know and trust what you know, and be willing to learn exactly what you don't. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace. Whew, that was another awesome episode of the Student Fire podcast. Thank y'all for sticking around for this long, but I got a question for you. Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? See, when I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions, like how do I record an episode? How do I get my show to apps? Like, do I have to do it individually, or can I just have one place that does everything for me? And most importantly, how do I make money from my podcast? Is that even an option? Well, honestly, y'all, your answer is Anchor. Anchor is the one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it is 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors that want to advertise on your podcast. Yes, you. That means you can get paid to make the podcast. You can get paid to podcast the right way. In fact, that's exactly what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. If you want to get in on this, if you want to make your podcast a reality, and you want your success and your word to be a thing, man, you already know. Hop over to Anchor and give it a start. You won't regret it. Catch y'all in the next episode. Peace.
I got you.
It's coming. Are you ready to ignite the fire?
We are Speak Fire.
Oh, and by the way, that's fire with a Y.
What's going on, everyone?
Internal fire.
Student Fire.
Young fire. Father's fire. Leadership fire.
Champion fire.
Unlocking the fire within.
Thank you all for tuning in. Let's grow.
Speak fire.
Speakfire.com.
Speak Fire with a Y.
We have a new episode that comes out every Monday at 4 a.m. Are you going to be up with us?
Deuces.